Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we're gonna make another game related tutorial, in particular this kind of trophy reveal animation, and I really hope you will enjoy this, and if you do, please don't forget to leave a like, it will really help me. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more tutorials like this in the future, please hit that subscribe and additionally bell button if you want to get notified when I release something new. And if you're new to the world of 3D and Blender, and you want to become a 3D illustrator, go and check out my courses that are carefully designed to teach you beginner and intermediate skills in quickest and most effective way. For example, with the new Ultimate 3D bundle, you can go from simple cubic designs all the way to full character illustration in a matter of weeks. So if you're interested, please go check out the link in the description. Let's jump right into empty Blender file, and as you can see, we're using Blender 3.3 LTS. That stands for long-term support, so this version should be updated for at least 2 years. And now we'll need to model all the props we'll need. Let's leave the camera as is, and now just select everything else, press X and delete. And now I'll start with the trophy. So let's hit 1 on a numpad for a front view, and let's press Shift A and let's add a single vert. If you don't have this option here, go into the Edit, Preferences, Add-on section and search for Extra Objects Add-on, and then you should see all of these options right here. So let's add that single vert, and you're already in the edit mode after adding it, and make sure you are in the vertex select mode, and let's start extruding. So let's press E, then X, and move this to the side just like that. Now press E, then Z, move it up, E again, and let's make this slanted like this. Then extrude this up, so E, then Z, and move it up, and one more extrusion, and one more in this direction. And now let's go E, then X, and let's go back like this and towards the middle. To hit the middle exactly, we can use snapping here, so switch to vertex snapping. Now press G, then X, and hold Ctrl to snap it here on this vertex so it sits on the X-axis on the 0. And now let's do some bevels. So let's select these 4 vertices right here and press Ctrl Shift P and bevel them like this and increase the number of segments with the mouse wheel, so something like this should work just fine. Now these two, that should be a little bit smaller, something like that. And now this one here. Okay, so this will be our profile. Tab out of the edit mode, go into the modifiers panel, and let's add screw modifier. And now we'll need one iteration of 360 degrees. And for the normals, let's hit calculate order, and that should fix all the shading issues. And now let's add another single vert, so let's press Shift A and let's add single vert. Again, 1 on a numpad for a front view, and now press G to move this vertex right here. And by holding Ctrl, we can right click to extrude handles like this. Tab out, right click and choose convert to curve. If you don't have this option here, for some reason some of you write that you don't see it there, you can go to object and convert to curve. And now in the curve settings, let's expand geometry section and let's increase the depth here like this and reduce the resolution. And now let's press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision modifier. You can see it here in the modifiers panel. Right click and shade smooth. And additionally, we can choose to fill caps in the curve settings. And now tab into the edit mode, and we can press Alt S to scale some of these vertices accordingly, however you want. So we're adding just a little bit of volume, and maybe press S then Y in the object mode to scale it on the Y axis. And then in the edit mode, we can select all and move it up a little bit. Now tab out and let's add a mirror modifier. And we have our trophy, and to make this a little bit more smooth, we can press Ctrl 1 on the trophy here to add subdivision modifier there as well. And now let's just select the handles, hold Shift, select the trophy and press Ctrl P to parent to object. So this is our trophy object. Now let's look from the front, press G then Z and move it down like this. And now I'll right click and choose set origin to 3D cursor, so it rotates around the middle. And now we can press G then Y and move it towards the front a little bit. And I want to add another object, so let's press Shift A and let's add circle. And now tab into the edit mode, press R then X and enter 90 on the keyboard and enter to confirm. Let's look from the front and make it a little bit larger like this, so it wraps around the trophy. And now let's press F to fill to create the face there. and press I to inset, I once again. And now let's hit P to separate the selection and confirm. Now we can hit 3 for face select, alt click this loop right here and press P and enter again to separate that as well. Now we can tab out and you can see we have these 3 different objects. We can select all of them, tab into the edit mode, press A to select all and E to extrude, like this. Tab out and in the modifiers panel, let's add bevel modifier, let's increase segments to 2 and let's reduce the amount. Now let's hit this little arrow and choose copy to select it. That will distribute that bevel modifier to these other ones as well. And now let's hit Ctrl 2 to add subdivision modifier and right click and shade smooth. And now we can modify the camera view, so let's hit 0 on a numpad. And if you hit N for a side panel and choose view, you can enable camera to view. And now if you rotate your viewport, you should be able to move your camera just like this. Let's position it from the front, something like this. It doesn't have to be too precise. And don't forget to uncheck it when you're done. And now with our composition ready, let's do some animation. So first of all, let's go to the output settings and choose 30 FPS for a frame rate, and then choose 70 frames for a timeline length. This will be very short animation. And let's move to frame 30, and with the trophy selected, hit I and insert location and rotation. If you for some reason don't see your keyframe here, just hit the middle mouse button and move your timeline. And now let's select the inside ring, hold shift, select the middle one and the outside ring, press Ctrl P and parent to object so they move at once, and now select the outer one and press I and insert location and rotation as well. So this will be our default position that we want to achieve on the frame 30. So we'll be starting with these objects down and they will just jump up. So we can start with the trophy and block out the animation first. So let's select it and let's enable auto keyframe and make sure you're on the keyframe 1, press G then Z and move it down like this. You can see the keyframe is created. And now just press R then Z and 360 and confirm with enter. So if you now scrub through the timeline, something like this happens. Of course, this is not enough, but it's a nice block out of what we want to achieve regarding the speed and when the things should happen. So the trophy will come up, rotation, stay here a little bit, and then it will disappear. So around frame 45, I want it to disappear. So it will go up, stay here a little bit, and then disappear on the frame 50, let's say. So let's hit I for scale. And now let's scrub through the timeline to something like frame, I don't know, 58, and then press S and 0. And these keyframes will be created for you. So it goes up, stays there, and disappears. And this is a single block out, of course. We will make this animation a lot smoother. And now let's follow up with the rings. So as the trophy goes up, I want the rings to follow. So let's select the outer ring, go down here, and press G then Z and move it down. And we can go lower, and that way we'll achieve that the trophy is coming up first and it's chased by those rings like this. And now I want to add some rotation there as well. So let's scrub to the frame 1 and I'll press R then Z and 720. So I want 2 rotations here. So it just goes like that. And then we can make it a little bit more interesting. Let's select the middle. And there's no keyframe here. So on the frame 30, let's hit I and insert the rotation keyframe. And let's scrub to the frame 1. And we can press R then X and rotate 1440. So that's 4 rotations. And let's see how this looks when we have some pretty nice action going on. Okay, and now when the trophy starts to disappear on the frame 50, I want this to go down again. So let's select this keyframe right here, press Shift D and duplicate it. And now let's scrub to frame, I don't know, 55 and press G then Z and move this down. Let's play our animation. Okay. And of course, this is too rigid. So now let's play with the curves. I will make this a little bit larger and hide the side panel with N. And now by hitting Ctrl Tab, we can switch to the curves here. And first let's deal with the trophy. So let's select it. and we can see all of the keyframes that got created. And sometimes we don't need all of them, but you can just hide them so you can better see what's going on here. And first of all, I want to handle the Z location movement, so let's hide everything and just enable Z location. And to better see what we're doing, just hit A in the timeline here and hit period on a numpad to zoom in. So as you can see, this is going up and stays there, but the stop is too rapid, so I want to select this handle and move it like this. So I want this to go in accelerated and then, you know, ease in a little bit more like that. And then I want it to continue rotating a little bit. So let's select this keyframe here. So let's press Shift D and duplicate this so it goes a little bit higher up, and we won't need this keyframe. So press X and delete keyframes. And now you can see after frame 30, it goes a little bit higher and then disappears. And that's what I want. But if you play it, it's a little bit too fast here. So what we can do is to make this, for example, not so pronounced, so it goes only a little bit higher. Now let's play through that animation, and you can see it kind of continues a little bit, and the stop is not so like pronounced. And now for the rotations, let's hide the Z location and let's enable rotations. I will press A to select all and hit period, and you can see we are only using Z rotation. So let's select the Y, press X and X2. We'll only leave this animated, and now we'll be able to rotate this on X and Y axis. But first, let's hit Ctrl Tab and make sure the auto keyframing is disabled, because that would just create new keyframes for us. Let's go back, and now we can press R, then Y and rotate this a little bit, and then R and X and rotate like that. And again, here I don't want this to stop so rapidly. So for example, we can just press G then Y and move this lower. And let's see what that does. And I quite like it. And maybe this can like slow a little bit more. Okay. That's quite alright. So let's just move to those scale animations. Let's disable this and let's enable X and Y Z scale. Again, I will press A to select all and period on a numpad so we can see our animation curves. And basically they are the same, and if you drag selection around those points, you will select X, Y and Z all at once. So let's do that down here, and we can make this a little bit more pronounced, like it disappears a little bit quicker. Like this, okay? That's for the trophy, so let's select the outer ring here and let's try to make something out of it. We are not working with scale, so I will select those channels and press X to delete them. And we are not working with X and Y location. And again, with the rotations, we are using only Z. So these are only two channels that we are using. And if you press A to select all and period on a numpad, you will see that the movement is barely visible because the range on the values is much higher with the degrees of rotation. So if you want to really see the curve for your movement, just disable the rotation, and again we'll press A and period on a numpad, and now you can see that movement curve. So let's see what that does, and it really stops here abruptly. So let's make something similar like with the trophy. I will just make this ease in a little bit more, and we can move this a little bit down like that. So it kind of goes up where it's supposed to go and then continues that really small movement and then starts to fall down more rapidly. Maybe we can make this a little bit more rounded. So let's see how that works. I really like it. Maybe that fall is too fast, so we can just move this to the side a little bit and grab this handle. Okay, I really like this. So now let's treat that rotation. I will disable this, enable rotation, and again select all and press period on a numpad. Now let's see how this rotation is made. You can see it stops here abruptly. So again, we'll just move this a little bit higher up, so there's some easing when it's hovering in the air. Okay, and now there's one more thing I want to do. When this trophy reaches its destination on the frame 30 to 40, I want something like sparkles or fireworks appear, so we get this hint of a really snappy and action-packed animation. So here it should kind of release some particles. So let's go to frame 30 and let's press Shift A and let's add, I don't know, icosphere should be enough, and just press S to scale it down. And we'll go to the particle settings and create a new particle system, and let's set frame start to 30 and frame end to 30 as well. I just want one release of particles and that's it, and reduce the number to something like 50. So this is what will happen here, and you can see the icosphere just release the particles down. So I'll go to the field weights here and reduce the gravity to something like 0.2. So first of all, they're falling much slower, and then let's go to the velocity options and let's increase the Z velocity to something like 0.5 and let's randomize it 0.5. So let's see how that looks. And maybe we can do some more velocity here on the Z-axis. Something like that. But I think it appears a little bit too late, so maybe we can shift it towards the frame 25. And let's increase that speed a little bit. Okay, quite alright. And now for the gravity we can go a little bit higher maybe. Okay, so we have some particles, but they are halos right now. So to actually render them, let's press Shift A and let's add another icosphere. I will just tab in, scale it down a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. And let's create a new material for them. And we'll switch the principle to emission. And let's add some strength of, for example, 50. And we'll come back to that later. I just wanted to have it set it up. And let's press M and move it to new collection. And I will call this hidden. And for now I will just disable this collection so it's not visible in the viewport, and let's hit the icosphere. And now in the render section, let's disable show emitter so it doesn't show in the render, and let's switch halo to object and we'll pick the icosphere, the second icosphere. And now we are emitting these icospheres, and we can play with the scale here and with the scale randomness. So I want to go full on the randomness to 1 and make these kind of like that. Okay, and let's hit play. Okay, I think this might look good on the first run. So let's set up some shading. Let's go to the render settings, and I will be using Eevee render engine this time, even for rendering. So you should be able to render it pretty quickly, even on lower end PCs. Let's enable ambient occlusion, bloom, and some screen space reflections. And let's set up some lighting. So I'll press Shift A and let's add light, area light, and press G then Z and move it up like this. And we can make it a little bit larger. And something like 500 watts. We'll see what that does. Of course, we can see nothing because we are not in the render preview. So let's hit rendered. And we can actually see our render right now in real time in Eevee. You can see that bloom on those emission particles. So this is our animation so far. It's quite alright. And there's one more thing I want to do with the particles, but let's leave it like this for a second. And one more thing, I think when the trophy shrinks down, this should be more low. So let's go for the Z location curve and let's bring this down like this, and maybe a little bit sooner. Okay. And now let's play with the lighting because this is not so great so far. So let's select the area light and we'll press G then Y and move it towards the front a little bit. And now we can tilt it on the Y axis. But first I want to switch this to 3D cursor and press R then Y and rotate it like this. So we have some top-down light. And let's go to the world settings, make this a little bit brighter, just like that, and let's try to pick some violet color. And now let's duplicate this light, so press Shift D, and let's press Alt R to reset its rotation and Alt G to reset its location. Press G then Z, move it up, and then R then X to rotate it like that, and R then Z. And now we are just rotating around the scene, and let's go from the side like this. We can maybe go a little bit closer, and let's reduce the light to something like 250. and I want to change the square to rectangle and make it very thin and high like this, and you will see why. Let's select the trophy and we'll create a new material here, and I want to go all the way for the metallic value and a little bit of gold here like that. And now select the handles and we'll choose the same material but duplicate it and choose a little bit different tint of gold so we can make it a little bit more interesting. And we'll do the same for the ring, so the other ring can be the first material, the same as the middle ring, and here we can choose that other tint and maybe make it a little bit more yellow like that. Okay, and now you can see the effect of this light, this really thin light on those reflections. And now we can press Shift D and R Z and rotate it on the other side as well, so we have some more light options here, and we can increase the power of this one here. So you can see there are multiple reflections right now, and that will just make the metallic value, the gold, a little bit more pronounced and visible. And now for these lights, let's uncheck the hidden here. Let's select the icosphere. We'll scrub through this a little bit, and let's set something like a little bit of a cyan blue material like this. I think this will go pretty nicely with the gold material. Okay, and now let's set up some background. So let's press Shift A and let's add a plane. Press G then Z, move it down. Now hit period on a keyboard and switch back to medium point. Press S and scale it up like this. And now select the far edge, so press 2 for edge select, select this edge. Press E then Z to extrude it up. Now select that edge once again, press Ctrl B to bevel and increase the number of cuts with the mouse wheel. And now tab out, right click and shade smooth. So we have a setup like this. We can maybe move it a little bit down. Let's see from the camera. And now let's add a material for the background, and that can be something like a blue color and a little bit increased roughness. And now to make things a little bit more interesting, we can press Shift A and let's add a point light, move it back like this and increase to something like 500. So we have some backlight here on the background, and we can make it a little bit more green or cyan like this. And now let's go to the render settings, and don't forget to enable motion blur. That will be essential for your animation, and don't forget to save your scene while you're working. That's really important to do. So let's see what we got here. We have this animation almost ready. I'm not sure about the particles. I think there is a space to play with them, but you saw all the settings I've used, and you will see the final result I have, so you can, you know, play around with that to find the settings that you like. But to refine this a little bit more, I want these to disappear a little bit on the frame, I don't know, like 55, and we are emitting them at frame 25. So let's select the icosphere here and go to the shading workspace. And now in the node editor, we can just add another shader. So let's press Shift A and let's go to the shader and add mix shader right here. And once more, and we'll add transparent shader and connect it right here. And let's reduce the factor to 0, and we can go back to the layout. We can see those options right here in the material tab, and you can see we have that factor and those two shaders connected. And now it's at 0, so it's a full emission. So let's go to the frame where we want them to start disappear. So for example, something like 45, press I, hovering over the factor. And now let's go to frame 55 and increase to 1 and press I to insert. Of course, these are now black dots because we didn't set up the shader properly for the Eevee. So let's go to the settings section, and for the blend mode, we'll choose alpha blend. And that will actually enable some transparency, and we can see them disappearing now. Now let's disable this collection again, and if you go to the frame 1, don't worry, this won't be visible, we checked that option, but this light will be visible. So if you want to make this look a little bit better when it's looping, just insert keyframe here as well at frame 30. That's our main keyframe. So let's hit I, hovering over the power here, and let's crop to frame something like, I don't know, 15, and let's go to 0 and press I to insert the keyframe here. So it lights up, And now let's hit Ctrl Tab so we only see the keyframes. We can press Shift D to duplicate this keyframe right there. And select this one and duplicate it here. So we light it up and bring it back down. Okay, and let's now play with the lighting a little bit more. So we can bring up the brightness of the world color, and in the render settings, color management, we can increase the contrast a little bit and play with the exposure. And now in the output settings, just choose some folder you want to save your animation in, switch this to FFmpeg, and in the encoding, choose MP4 for a container. And now let's just hit render animation, wait for it to finish and preview your file. So that's it for today's animation. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave that like, it will really help my channel. And again, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.